think, long term, like we have massive plans to really move down that path and empower creators and empower consumers and, create this decentralized YouTube meets Etsy type of platform so that anybody could sell anything to anybody they want and nobody can stop or prevent any of that.
So what is it that you want to accomplish? Where are you going with this? What is going to be your RWI?
No, I totally agree with you. I think that RWI makes me think of RWA too, right? Real world assets, and like a lot of times where I think before we get to a real world asset state of, I buy a house and it's on the blockchain, or my car loan's on there, or I own some physical thing that's tied to a blockchain. Before mass consumers really get there, what I think is like a RWDA, right? Like a real world digital asset, right? All these digital assets that everybody's currently is already buying. And I think when this law goes into effect in California, a lot of people are going to realize they're not really buying them. And so I think long term, whether that's us or a combination of other entities or some other entity, um, like the inevitability in my mind of digital assets all moving away from licensing and existing as digital objects is only more beneficial to both the creators who are making those assets and the consumers who are buying and consuming them. So really, the only person that effectively you could say would lose out in a sense would be the centralized parties that are selling them, and they're not really losing out because they would be creating a stronger tie between the creator and the consumer. So I think if we rewound in history and we went back to 1999 and blockchain came out then, that we never would have industries never would have gone down a path of licensing. Like it would have only made sense to say, hey, I could create a finite amount of these, they're trackable, nobody can pirate them or steal them, and every time they move we get paid in the future. And by the way, we can also see anonymously by wallets who owns those. So if we want to give them a coupon for the next thing, or if they own that first one they get a discount on the next one. It is a much better mousetrap, and I think long term, like that happens, whether that's with us or with somebody else. And like obviously, I'm biased towards us. I think we're way out in front of this. I think we've made we're in negotiations with a ton of some of the world's largest publishers, some of the world's largest labels, talking to movie studios. I think that there's a massive the more we talk to those entities as well, the more feedback we get from them, which they're desperate to get out of the current situation, like any possible way that they can monetize, even with like Universal, like you mentioned, going to Universal, right? Labels like that, right, where you would think they're making a ton of money, but they're really not making that much, and they're you see this across the board with labels where they're cutting budgets for music videos because music videos intent originally was basically a video advertisement so people would go buy the album.
Yeah, what
Now that
music
you
video?
can't, yeah, now you can't do that. It's like, well, why would we waste money making a music video, right? But me as a fan, I'm like, well, I would buy the music video if you gave me the option to like buy it and collect it. And maybe if I got it, maybe if I bought the music video a week later, I get an unreleased single, airdrop to me. Like, there's so many cool like combinations. I think from the merchandising side and that creator consumer, direct connection side, is inevitable to happen. So I just think long term, like we have massive plans to really move down that path and empower creators and empower consumers and create this decentralized YouTube meets Etsy type of platform so that anybody could sell anything to anybody they want and nobody can stop or prevent any of that. I think just someone in the future too, which we don't talk about our token necessarily a lot, but I in recent weeks, like we've had a lot of discussions about how that will play like a instrumental part just in the economy of this and a lot of different ways of how that interacts across. I think a lot of times the token will have sort of a single purpose utility, and in our white paper we lay out like a lot of different ways. But I think as we've gone on these discussions, really we've unlocked and realized a lot of other ways that's actually going to be highly valuable from a tokenized economy. And I think that principle in general, I think applies not just to what we're doing, but to other projects where an L1 token in general is there to help facilitate and should be sustainable for the resources necessary to sustain that system. But they're basically the shipper, right? They're the logistics system for all these other systems that sit on top, where the tokens from these other assets will have a more customer facing side, right? Not that the deeper people go into it, they won't understand and realize like, hey, I want to buy ADA, I want to buy Poly or whatever. But the more that those are focused on the customer presentation side and making that very easy for people to understand, it becomes a great mechanism. I'd say they're not really L2s, but projects, dApps sitting on top of there. It's making a lot more sense as far as like what we're doing and that path that we're going down. And I think we're headed towards, at least what we're doing, I think we're really headed towards this idea of, this very bright like resurgence of a golden era for creators that hasn't existed really since the 90s, where they can actually monetize their art and not have to make an album and put it to Spotify and get paid pennies for it, but to actually produce something, to sell a film,